Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sara Jane, and I am delighted today to be joined by Dan Stillman. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you having me on your wonderful show.
Thank you. Our topic for the program, Dan's going to be sharing about the root map method, root map method. But I'm going to introduce you a little bit more fully to him first. Dan Stillman is a dynamic entrepreneur, certified yoga instructor, positive psychology practitioner, and integrative health coach dedicated to helping individuals reclaim their health and purpose. As the founder of Heal Hub Advisors, Dan has created a transformative platform that combines functional medicine, mindset coaching, and holistic wellness to address the root causes of physical and emotional challenges. With a deep understanding of the gut-brain connection, he specializes in guiding high-performing professionals and individuals with chronic fatigue, digestive issues, and burnout towards sustainable healing. Dan's unique approach integrates advanced lab testing, personalized coaching, and practical lifestyle strategies. He is also the creator of the signature Get Real, Deal, and Heal course and Root Map Method program. Through his work, Dan empowers others to make lasting changes by aligning mind, body, and spirit, helping them unlock their full potential. His mission is clear: to help people live healthier, more vibrant lives from the inside out. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan. And please share a little about yourself, other than obviously what's in the bio, a little of your story and how you actually come to do the root map method and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, so I was born with stomach issues at a very young age, and I also had to overcome some abandonment, some issues that were some beliefs that were instilled upon me as a child that most of us kind of do as growing up, and our parents do the best that they can with what they've learned. But some of those beliefs are, I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? I did something wrong. Why don't people like me? And we get caught up in the stereotype of life of this is how it's supposed to be. And so at an early age, I had to overcome, not only the emotional turmoil from dealing with some of the shame and the abandonment, but also the physical symptoms of dealing with some of the stomach issues, which back in the 1970s, they really didn't have the technology to figure out what was going on. And so I was put on medication for like a year and a half of my life, some very strong steroid medicine that I'm sure had some side effects. We see on commercials every day, these drug commercials, especially here in the United States, that it causes that some of the symptoms or some of the side effects could be cancer, Parkinson's disease, all those things. But back in the 70s, it was kind of like, okay, let's just put them on some medication. And it did help at the time, but I did struggle. And that did cause like some trauma for me, because I developed the belief that I had something wrong with my stomach as I, grew up through my teenage years. And so I was always very cautious, like, don't hit me in the stomach. My stomach's bad. I have a bad stomach. And, it wasn't until I was 22 when I was able to address some of the emotional issues by going to therapy. Not only that, I was able to, the technology was better, and they realized what was wrong with my stomach at the time. And I had stomach surgery, which corrected the issue that I had, which was they determined it was called lymphatic hyperplasia.
Okay. You seem to have...
But then I developed some other issues as a result of that, called sphincter body disorder, where my liver enzymes were really high, and they had to do a procedure to help with that. And, I think growing up in the 70s with all the ultra processed foods that I was given, and we really weren't taught about how bad these foods were, I'm sure was contributing to conditions such as leaky gut, SIBO, some, other IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease. They thought I had Crohn's disease at one point. And it wasn't until, I was still dealing with these stomach issues up until the age of 38, where I finally found functional medicine. And when I found functional medicine, it was like a lifesaver for me. It introduced me to a holistic approach, which back then was kind of like woo-woo. And I really didn't even believe in the holistic approach because, I'm a big scientific person and I like to see the evidence behind it. But when I saw that they had these comprehensive tests that they could do and it was backed by science, when I was able to do that test, it just opened my eyes to a whole new world of, wow, I did have leaky gut. I did have SIBO. I had food sensitivities to things I didn't even realize that I had food sensitivities to. I didn't even realize that I had a problem with a methylation issue due to a genetic defect that I had, where I didn't methylate vitamin B12 properly. So that's why I always felt like tired all the time. And so once I was able to go on a supplement program with the functional medicine doctor and a comprehensive elimination diet, within 8 to 12 weeks, my whole life changed and I was better. And so that was kind of the epiphany or the aha moment where all the work that I had done previously on mindset, learning positive psychology, at the age of 15, I'm watching Wayne Dyer on TV. I'm reading books by Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, those type of things. I guess it was always innate in me to really want to be the best person I could be, from a emotional point of view. And I truly believe that, I chose this life. I'm a spiritual person, so I kind of believe that, each of us has a choice, and that was the choice that I had made. And so through the work that I did, looking back at my life and connecting the dots of some of the things I had overcome emotionally and physically, it brought me to this point here today where I dedicated, my life to saying my greatest weaknesses that have shaped me have now become my greatest strengths, and I need to share that with the world. And that's what's got me into this work and why I'm so passionate about helping people emotionally, physically, spiritually, and intellectually.
And it's so true, isn't it? Mindset can make so much difference to any diagnosis or awareness. I'm just thinking about my younger sister. She's got osteoporosis and various other things, bless her, she's celiac. But she was told, I don't know, probably actually 10 years ago, you'll be in a wheelchair within 5 years. Her mindset has always kept it at 5 years.
Yeah.
She's never gone 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She still isn't in a wheelchair. And that's the mindset, the thought process of, and people who are diagnosed with things like cancer, it's just like, it's not going to beat me, depending, oh my God, it's cancer, I'm going to die, against, okay, I've got it. What have I got to do to live the fullest life I can? It depends so much on mindset, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And that's one of the things that I learned, through positive psychology, is that you could become your own cognitive-based therapist. And, the way to do that is to really understand brain physiology, to understand what thinking traps are, to understand neuroplasticity, to understand what a habit is, a cue, a routine, and a reward, to understand some of the beliefs that are holding us back and that those beliefs can be changed by making a decision. And there's other things that are involved, such as learning the difference between a growth versus fixed mindset. Learning to love yourself, living in the moment with, being grateful, understanding how self-centered fear plays a role in your life. Either you're afraid you're going to lose what you have, or you're afraid you're not going to get what you want or need, or how unrealistic expectations can be, a burden. Or most importantly, one of the things that we most struggle with is perfectionism. So what is the antidote for perfectionism? Well, that's really truly learning to love yourself. When you truly learn to love yourself and become vulnerable, you start to shed the, so-called stereotypical thinking of worrying about what other people think of you. And that's what we do in life. We worry about what other people think of us. And that kind of gets us caught into this downward spiral of comparison. And that becomes a huge issue. So when we're able to break free from the bonds of self-centered fear, unrealistic expectations, perfectionism, and replace them with loving yourself, gratitude, and learning to live in the moment, you're able to live freely and be able to pursue your passions and what you really want to do in life and and how you want to contribute to this world. And because you were meant to do something great. You were born for a reason. It's a privilege to be here. So, what is it that makes you unique? By learning to love yourself, by finding out who you are, doing the self-introspective work to realize, oh, I am meant to do something great. Let me figure out what that is so I can contribute that to society.
I love what you said about sort of worrying about what other people think about you, because I was so in that place for so long.
Me too.
It was that light bulb moment standing in my kitchen one day, and not the kitchen in this house. It was, been 25, 26, maybe even 27 years ago. And it was just like, why am I worrying about what other people think about me when they're not? And it was just as if a massive weight lifted off my shoulders. And it was just a thought that came into my head. And I hope that people listening to this will take that thought on board, because people aren't thinking about you. And if they are, have they really got nothing better to do in their own lives, or are they trying to escape their own lives?
Exactly.
The majority of people are worrying about what's going on in their life. They might even be worrying about what you're thinking about them when you're not. So think about that. But share a little, what is the route map method?
So route map method is me really working with someone to help them physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. And really what we're focusing on, and what I alluded to earlier, is my passion about helping someone with their gut health, their gut-brain axis. So most people, have an idea about the immune system, because when COVID hit, the whole world realized, oh, where does the immune system live? In your gut, because it was broadcasted on every news network. But most people don't really know that the gut does so much more, that it's connected to what your gut is really called is your enteric nervous system. And your enteric nervous system is connected to what's called an HPA axis. Your HPA axis consists of your hypothalamus, your pituitary glands, your adrenal glands. Your enteric nervous system is connected to your central nervous system. Your central nervous system is your spine, connected to your brain. And they communicate through what's called vagus nerves that extend from your brain all the way through all your organs. And the communication is basically 80% from your gut to your brain. You have what's called a gut-brain barrier, blood-brain barrier, where people can experience. Have you ever experienced foggy brain? Well, after you've eaten something, or maybe consumed something, or put something on from the environment. Well, that is your gut communicating to your brain that you've ingested something that is causing this issue. And some people walk around feeling foggy brain all the time. Some people experience rashes all the time. Some people experience joint pain. A lot of it has to do with autoimmune diseases that mimic a condition called leaky gut or dysbiosis or SIBO. Some people have parasites. And all these things, 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So the gut-brain connection is so important, because when it is connected through your HPA axis, which produces like cortisol and norepinephrine, all these different things, if you're not maintaining or taking care of these little bugs, these microscopic bugs that are in your gut, which almost the evidence is some people say that it's 10 times more than the cells you actually have in your body. Some say it's 50-50. Regardless, you have a synergistic relationship between these bugs and who you are and energy. So this is a meat suit. So what I've done is I've created a program called the Root Map Method that basically is going to take care of not only your brain, but also your gut. Because, I mentioned some things earlier about like a habit, which consists of a cue, a routine, and a reward, right? When you're working with people and you're fixing their gut and you teach them how to eat properly and things like if they have food sensitivities and maybe a few other things, you want them to have long-lasting change. The only way you're going to do that is to be able to teach them some of the concepts of how to become your own cognitive-based therapist, how to change a habit. What are these thinking traps? How do I, identify these things so that way I have long-lasting change? And on top of this, really what the glue that keeps this all together is called deliberate practice. Like you have to, based on neuroplasticity, you have to be able to repeat something over and over again to create a new neural pathway and shed an old one, an old belief. So I could go back to that, but just to give you kind of a quick breakdown of what the Root Map Method is when I work with somebody, the first pillar is really working on the root causes and really providing a metabolic reset. And what that means is we're going to do some comprehensive gut testing to really find out what's going on and eliminate those problems, not just with a quick fix, but over like a 90-day period with some supplementation to really help them put together a plan based on comprehensive scientific data that shows exactly what's going on, whether they have dysbiosis, leaky gut. We want to heal that so that way the gut is functioning properly. Once the gut is starting to function properly, the brain fog goes away. We start to eliminate some of the overthinking because your serotonin is starting to come into balance. The irritability, the anxiety. We're going to eliminate the bloating, the digestive issues. We're going to improve sleep by doing this, right? And all this within the first 90 days. Then we're going to implement like a symptom tracker to basically really keep track of what's going on. It's really important to do that. So if there's any modifications that need to happen, we are able to implement those. Then we're going to basically rewire and reclaim. And what I mean by that is we're going to start to work on the gut and gut-brain feedback loop, really to try and help someone understand, what's going on, teach them how to become their own cognitive-based therapist, to be able to recognize and interrupt the fear-based patterns that they're experiencing. We want to reframe the stress. We want to be able to, install a single high-leverage habit where people can continue to basically flourish and deal with some of these things. It's basically really trying to help someone, lead their lives without burning out, right? A lot of people, executives, they just burn out. They have no energy at the end of the day. And we want to teach people the proper habits to build in self-care. While they're also taking care of themselves physically, we want to make sure that they're also learning these really important skills that I touched upon earlier, those 3 negative behavioral patterns, the self-centered fear, the unrealistic expectations, the perfectionism, and replace them with the antidotes of loving yourself, living in the moment, and gratitude. And then the last part would be like to sustain and support someone. And that's done with one-on-one weekly calls, right? Where we're really going to break this down depending on whether they're taking on a 3-month, a 6-month, or a 9-month engagement with me, depending on what those test results show. They're going to have 24/7 direct access with me via WhatsApp, because depending on what program you're on, you may find yourself in a situation, especially if you're trying to implement new habits and eating, because part of this is also really doing an elimination diet while you're on these supplements and stay away from the inflammatory foods that are causing some of these things. Doesn't mean you have to stay away from them forever, but a tried and true way is an elimination diet to be able to reintroduce things after the 90 days to see if they've caused you issues in the past. And then if they have caused issues, then you stay away. We're building a lifestyle. Like, this is about changing and building a lifestyle. And so many people, if they don't learn the mindset things, they just go back to the way that they used to be because they've had these habits that have been ingrained. So we're really like deprogramming you and reprogramming you with the things that you should have been taught. And hopefully you'll forget about the things that you were taught that really didn't serve you. So we're doing, obviously there's a lot of other tools and lesson plans and things that come with it, but that's really the crux of what we're doing with the root map method.
So it's really important for people to be able to let go of the right. That's where the wording was right there in my head and it's gone. Basically, the learned behaviors, the behaviors that have served their purpose and don't serve us any purpose anymore. Because obviously, as children, this is what I think about this of the mind, the ego mind. It was created at that age to be our protector. So to make sure that we didn't go putting our hands in fires or on sharp objects or whatever. If we did it once, we learned and we didn't do it again. So it was there as our protector. The problem is, and I've said this so many times, is that we've never actually said to the mind, whatever you want to refer to that aspect, the monkey mind, we have never said to it, I am now an adult, you have taught me well. Now it is time to change your role from my protector. And so I sort of put it in the way of, you've been like the accountant of my life. Now I wish to make you the personal assistant to my heart, to help make my heart choices happen, the healthy choices for life, those experiences that you wish to have, but you've talked yourself out of so many times for the fear of what could happen. What about this? What about that? What about the other? The old mind going off at 100 to a dozen to stop you from doing the things because it thinks it still has to protect you. And so it's supporting letting go of the old unwanted behaviors that serve you no purpose anymore. And that includes addictions like chocolate, which is definitely a problem I have.
Yeah. I mean, I think people need to understand that they aren't their brain. Yeah. And, you have to learn to really practice the pause and understand that, there's scientific evidence that shows that our thoughts aren't really our thoughts. Like, there was a study where they did fMRI scans on people and asked them to play the piano and did scans on a certain piece of music. And then they had other people, just other musicians. We don't want you to play the piano, but we want you to think of how you're playing the piano with the same song, and the same parts of their brain lit up as the people who actually played the piano, which goes to show you that your brain can't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. So you're not your brain, right? And that's why I try and teach people about, how we are storytellers. Like, we basically make up worst case scenarios. Like, for instance, I'm going to lose my job. Therefore, I'm going to be out on the street. But you just heard a rumor. That's not fact. What is the evidence for and what is the evidence against that? You have to question your thoughts and that thought or that belief. What's the belief behind that? The belief is, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm going to lose everything that I have, which is not reality. You have to almost take your thought and your belief to court and use fact-based evidence to come up with the true, belief that's real. And if people are able to learn to do that, which is becoming your own cognitive-based therapist, I think it would make people's lives a lot easier. And also understanding that emotions are neither good nor bad. Emotions are emotions, and you're supposed to feel your emotions. The important thing is not to get stuck in the emotion. You get stuck in the emotion, then you're going to spiral down the rabbit hole. And that's not what what you're supposed to do with your emotions. You're supposed to feel them because you're human, and you don't want to stuff feelings, because then that gets stored in your body. Again, your body keeps the score. You don't want to do that. That's why a lot of people are walking around with backaches. That's why a lot of people who have PTSD and stress and trauma get sick and get cancer, because they're storing this stuff. So if anyone is listening to the show, or people who watch it, if you are suffering from trauma, you have to address it. In order for you to live a flourishing life, you have to address the trauma, because it's being somewhere stored in your body, maybe in your gut, who knows? But you got to take care of that.
Oh, it's 100%. I've said for sort of a long time that, sort of as a child, you got told off, and it's just like, oh, okay, and that hurt. And okay, they don't like that part of me, so that's a part of me that I've got to put to one side. But that is a hurt that hasn't been dealt with, because as a child you have no idea, and you've separated a very valid part of yourself. Whoa, okay, we've lost Dan. Hopefully he'll be back shortly. So if you've separated aspects of yourself, if you've had those feelings, you're back. Good. We lost you.
Yeah.
So those traumatic, as you said, those traumatic things that happen, because one word can be traumatic to a child, and never underestimate what can hurt a child, because they don't know how to deal with it. You're right. It's stored. I worked with one person. It was just a simple Reiki session, and I saw the solar plexus, and the lid was off. It's like a well, and everything that you haven't dealt with in this particular individual, it was in that well.
Yeah.
And it was full of gunk. It was absolutely full of gunk. It was, and until we can get that lid off that well, and we can start dealing with those things, helping the child to heal. And it is possible to help the child to heal. I've done it for myself with my own, so I know it is. When we can help the younger aspects of ourselves to heal, then as the child heals, the adult heals, the confidence heals. Otherwise, we keep putting ourselves into the self-fulfilling prophecy. Relationships don't last, jobs don't last, this doesn't last, that doesn't last, because that's our insecurities from what has happened earlier in our lives. And it's, again, that's a learned behavior, a learned memory that we have to get rid of, to be perfectly honest. We have to rephrase all of that in our minds, so that we're not keeping this hamster wheel of keep coming back to the same experiences.
Yeah, I mean, that's why learning about brain physiology is important. Learning about the limbic system, the prefrontal cortex. The limbic system is your fight, flight, and freeze. Your prefrontal cortex is your rational thinking system. Understanding how a thought is created through neuroplasticity, how to shed the old thought and recreate a new habit, a new neural pathway. Doesn't mean that the old one will go away. It's still there. It's like an example would be if you're working at a company and every month or 2 months, they say it's a mandatory that you change your password. You could basically change your password that day, go get a cup of coffee, come back and start typing in the old password, right? But with deliberate practice over the next 2 weeks or a week, you remember you remember that new password, right? But say 3 weeks from that time, you don't get enough sleep. You had a traumatic experience the day before, or you had too many drinks, and you come into the office the next day. There might be a good chance that you start typing in the old password, but then you remember, oh, right? It's the same. That's deliberate practice and building a new neural pathway, creating the memory in your hippocampus, like understanding how the process works. It works the same way with building a new habit. It takes practice. The scientific evidence shows, that it takes, between 60 and 66 days to create a new neural pathway, and it could be sooner than that. Some people say 21 days. Some people, it can happen, instantaneously. But, it depends on what it is and what you're really trying to change. But it takes, the deliberate practice, having an accountability partner help you with this in order for you to institute the changes that you need. So that way you could slowly be introduced to your higher self that you never knew existed.
I think the sad part about it all is that we aren't taught to love ourselves. There's I suppose the majority aren't. There are some that are, that they can truly build a confidence in themselves without there being any. I mean, I certainly wasn't in a place many years ago, but I remember sort of one customer saying to me, "Oh, you are special," and I went, "I know," but then I believe that everybody is special in their own unique way. So is there conceit behind the way you are, or is it just a confidence in yourself? And it's helping people to have that confidence and belief in themselves, that they can go into the I know, but there's absolutely no conceit in it because they know everybody else is special and we're all uniquely special. So it's so sad that we aren't taught to love ourselves from the perspective of when we do love ourselves enough, we can actually bring so much more of that to others because we are in a better place ourselves. Our caring about ourselves, our boundaries, all of those things teach people how to treat us, but they also support others. If they can do it, I can do it. And that's really so important, that the loving of ourselves then will actually mirror in everything that we do, in what we eat, in encouraging the way we think, and in what we do. So it becomes the whole thing, doesn't it?
It's growing spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, and physically every day of your life, and the work never ends. The onion just continues to get peeled until you're not here anymore. That's the goal. And when you love yourself, you want to learn, you want to become a better person, right? Then when you truly learn to love yourself, when I was able to, I created something when I was 22 called the 9 ingredients of love. And they're sincerity, courtesy, unselfishness, patience, tolerance, humility, good temper, generosity, and being guileless. And I hung those on my refrigerator and I read them morning, noon, and night. And when I understood and moved those from my head to my heart, right, I understood that all my thinking doesn't really come from my brain. I need to think from my heart, right? That's where, people, I think, forget, where you have to practice the pause and understand that your heart also has a brain. Scientific evidence has proven it, that the heart has memory. People get heart transplants and then they take on the characteristics of the donor. They found already that there's things called sensory neurites that are in our heart, 40,000 sensory neurites, and they're all in the lining of our guts as well. That's why they call it a gut feeling. So you have to like really understand, how important it is to, truly, truly love yourself. And you had mentioned something earlier about the confidence. Yes, it's important to be confident, but it's also important to have an equal balance of vulnerability. Because when you have that vulnerability and you're able to truly love yourself, then you're able to be not defensive and have empathy towards someone else who, may be having a bad day, or maybe they're mad at you, and maybe you did do something wrong, because we're human and we made a mistake, and you're able to apologize because you realize like there's no reason for me to get defensive. I'm not worried about what other people think of me. I did make a mistake, and if I truly love myself, I'm able to truly love others. And if I truly love others, then I need to really understand that my inner child needs to play nicely in the sandbox with their inner child. And I think when you truly understand that other people have inner child wounds, especially in relationships, then you're able to work together with your partner to have a beautiful, loving relationship.
Oh, absolutely. It all comes back to love in all its forms, and staying out of judgment, which is, I think, a really good thing about the going to pause, because it's so easy to judge others, but what's going on in their lives? I think somewhere at the beginning you referred to being perfect and perfectionism, but whose description of perfectionism? Because what might be perfect to you wouldn't be perfect to me. So whose definition of perfectionism is it? Be yourself, be true to yourself, and if it's in the messy ways, that's fine. It's be comfortable, be vulnerable, be true to who you are. And if others don't like it, then that's their stuff. Just don't harm anybody else. That's the most important thing. But preferably don't harm yourself either.
Well, that's, part of loving yourself is to have boundaries, right? Like we want to establish boundaries. We want to not be people pleasers, Listen, I think, for me as a man, part of my work is also, helping men really understand that, because men tend to not, we develop the myths of masculinity, and and we kind of hide our feelings, and we're intimidated by strong, intelligent women, right? Because we think, oh, we should be the strong ones. And we miss the boat on a lot of things. One of the things I had to learn in relationships is, when my partner asked me, oh, when it's Friday, and she's asking me, hey, what would you like to do? And she stayed home with the kids and took care of them. And, and I'm like, oh, whatever you want, honey. Wrong, wrong answer. Because in men's minds, they think, oh, women are nurture, like they're just there to take it, but they also are nurturers, and they want to show appreciation for you for the hard work that you're doing. But we, as men, we're not really taught that. So we're not taught, we're taught different things. There's no playbook that's given to us. And, when it comes to, like, for me, I had to learn not to people please. I had to learn, like, having a very strong woman in my life who is a nurturer and wants to help me is like an asset. It's not a liability. It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness on my part. Men think that because, again, it comes down to self-esteem and loving yourself. When you really learn to love yourself and become vulnerable, vulnerability transcends both masculine and femininity. It's at the spirit, at your soul. And so, like learning some of these things, I think tends to be harder for men than women, because women tend to be more open and emotional. And, I think, once men are able to realize this, especially like this is some of the things that when I work with men with the root map method and teaching them, how to become their own cognitive based therapist, this is something in addition that I have to work with men. And then there's other things that, on the feminine side that I have to work with, because a lot of women have experienced trauma because of men. And I have to help build their self-esteem to help them find themselves, who they were prior to getting married or in a relationship, and find what their passions are and bring them back to who they used to be. So, my work kind of entails different methodologies based on who I'm working with, whether it's a male or a female. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a huge amount of sense. It really does. And we're coming close to our time. So, great.
How flies when you're having fun.
But is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to share at this point? And we will give folks your website address. So, but anything else you'd like to add?
We've touched a lot. I think the thing I want to end this with is that if you're someone who's struggling, both physically and emotionally, I want you to understand that a lot of it wasn't your fault, that you were programmed a certain way. And if you've experienced trauma in your life, trust me, I've been there. I've had to overcome physical abuse, abandonment, shame. A lot of it isn't your fault, and the only way that you're going to be able to really become your true authentic self and be free and really live a flourishing life is to address the traumas or micro traumas that you've experienced in your life, because there is a way. And I know it's very fearful and it's scary to do so, but know that there's people out there. There's so many coaches, so many people, including myself, including, Sara, who are here to support you, and you're not alone. Just know that you're not alone and that you have someone who cares and loves you. And you're just going to have to put down all the negativity that you're seeing on the TV and social media and just breathe and give yourself a break and kind of realize I am worth it. I'm here to do something great. And just be brave. Just put one little foot forward. And I promise you, if you do that, you're on a path to true enlightenment.
Bless you. Thank you so much, Dan. And Dan's website is healhubadvisors.com. So Heal Hub Advisors is all one word. It's in the chat, and I'll make sure if you're watching this on YouTube that it's in the information below the video as well. Dan, thank you so very much for sharing with us today. So much amazing information. And folks, do feel free to go to Dan's website to learn more if you anything here's resonated with you, and you can contact him through his website as well. So Dan, thank you so very much. And I actually think our program next week, our today's conversation is our part of our series, Selfish or Harder to Manipulate. We're being joined by Linda Binns and Sara Troy. But our topics within that: unmask your saboteurs and take your power back, and self-care essential for our well-being, which is exactly what you've been talking about.
Yeah.
I love the synchronicities at times with the way the programs run into each other, and it's just and I love the way the universe works. Dan, it has been a real pleasure. Take care, be safe, stay well. Namaste, sweet souls.